I've been having some really bizarre dreams as of late, ever since I pulled back from life as a celebrity or local new wave keyboardist due to just overwhelming stress. I haven't had really vivid dreams in about 5 years or so. Usually when I do have dreams anymore, they're very vague. Usually they're nonsense. They don't really have any specific meaning. But I've been going to sleep a lot earlier and getting a lot more sleep and trying to repair my mind. And I had some really weird dreams, but I don't think they're entirely nonsense. I do think they mean something. So I had two dreams tonight, even though the title of this video is My Bizarre Dream. You're kind of getting a twofer here. So the first one, I'm in this exact hallway, like this exact spot right here, and there's a knock on the door, on the front door, and I go to open it, and there's this girl there, and she looks like my cartoon character, Tara the emotionally detached goth chick from my Blotto scene. I swear this isn't a commercial or anything. I'm not just trying to sell Blotto. This was an actual dream I had. So she looks just like Tara, and I remark on that. I say, "You look the most like Tara of anyone I've ever met. Like a real-life version of Tara." And she says, "No, my name's not Tara. My name's Denise." And she's wearing a different type of dress than Tara usually wears. And it's like a high-cut top with like a triangle in the middle. This is so weird, and I don't know what exactly to make of it. But she asks if she can have a free copy of Blotto, and I'll autograph it. So I'm like, okay. I go in, I get a copy of Blotto, and I bring it out and sign it, and I give it to her, and then she hugs me. She gives me like this long, at least 10-second hug, and it's really nice. She's very nice. I mean, obviously she's not Tara, because Tara would never like give me a hug like that. Tara's kind of off-putting in like every conceivable way, for those of you who have read the comic. Then she gives me a copy of her zine, which is just like Blotto. It's the same length and the same level of detail and everything, except in her version, instead of Tara, the emotionally detached goth chick, there's a comic called like Nicholas, the emotionally illiterate cartoonist, and it's me, and it's just me, you know, being stupid like how I am, just being a total autistic freak, just an absolute waste of time, you know, an absolute worthless human being. And I think about like how someone could make fun of me through a comic just as easily as I make fun of Tara, because I'm just as much of a predictable by-the-numbers stereotype, and that's very sad. But anyway, then she pulls out her like sketchbook, and there's all these wonderful little doodles and writings in it, and the sad part is it was a dream, so I can't really remember what any of them said, and the writing was kind of just loopy nonsense, but it looked very beautiful. It had all these intricate curlicues, and you know, obviously being goth, she wrote with like colored Sharpie pins and shit, and it was just like, wow, you know, this girl lives a whole separate life than me, and she is like Tara, but like way more intricate and interesting, and she has a life of her own. That's so neat. So this was a kind of disturbing dream, and it was, I think, a predecessor to the other dream, because in it, if we're going to go by like tarot type terms here, not tarot terms, but you know, tarot, like the card deck, if we're going by symbology, then I think Denise kind of represents this like lady at the crossroads, you know. there's a crossroads, and it's between like good and bad, or which direction you're gonna go. And Denise is kind of fucking creepy because she doesn't have like a definable intent. She's just there, and she's like, what you gonna go down? What are you gonna do? Ultimately, only you can decide what's right for you. I'm just here at the intersection of the choices you can make and the decisions you can make to sustain yourself for as long as possible as a conscious being on this planet. And that's kind of disturbing, but I think that's what Denise ultimately represented. So that was the nice dream of the night. Now on to the less pleasant dream. This dream, like I say, it was extremely vivid, way more vivid than the type dreams I usually have. But if Denise was like at a crossroads for me, or like, weighing the scales of justice, then I guess my mind decided that the bad option was for me. So in this dream, I'm a Vice investigative journalist. I've dabbled in journalism, of course, but never like Vice level journalism. You know what I mean? Like the Vice YouTube channel, where they have these journalists who go into the hardcore terrorist group, or the cannibal village, or North Korea, or whatever. They go into these extremely intense environments, and somehow they like maintain their composure and cool amid all of it, which is a skill I've always really admired, because it does take a lot of bravery and guts to go into like an active war zone or whatever, and to keep your composure. But obviously this dream was just because I've been experiencing so much accumulated stress from all the psychic damage I've committed to myself over the last couple of years by engaging with people, even though I'm too autistic to actually form like a meaningful emotional connection with the vast majority of anyone. So anyway, in this dream, I'm in the foothills of Colorado somewhere along the Front Range. I guess Sedalia would be the most likely location. I've always been fascinated by Sedalia, and I wonder kind of what goes on there. It's one of those little tucked away, out of the way type places that nobody ever really affords any thought to. But I'm not sure exactly where it was along the foothills. It really could have been anywhere. Anyway, my role as the Vice investigative journalist was to document the expedition of this like Islamic terrorist who lived locally, I guess. It's an outrageous idea that like there's this immense terrorism battle going along here in Colorado, but anyway, I just kind of rolled with it. So I meet the Islamic terrorist, and he shows me into his car. He's like, "Hey, here's my car. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna look around for members of the Israeli Defense Force, and those infidels, blah blah. All the wild extremist religious rhetoric that goes on between Muslims and Jews, and has been ever since the inception of Islam." So we get in his car. We start driving west towards the mountains. It's around twilight. It's very late, but the sky is kind of purplish. It has kind of an orange glow off to the horizon. And I noticed this, and we're driving along this extremely flat, straight, tree-lined road. There don't even seem to be any mountains or any risk of like approaching the mountains. They just stay, a reasonable distance. Like I've known them basically all my life. It's very rare I get up into the mountains. But we're driving extremely, extremely fast, like 70 miles an hour, and he's just gripping the steering wheel, and his face is locked into this stare of just wild rage, And me being the Vice investigative journalist who goes into these very intense scenarios, like altercations between alternative terrorist factions, I just, sit back and, try to remain neutral to the whole conflict before me. I'm just like, okay, This is just my job. I'm just the vice investigative journalist. So then this armored truck, which houses, I guess, the Israeli Defense Force, or the members of it who this guy doesn't like, they zoom out in front of us. They pass us on the left. They go in front of us, and he presses on the gas. You know, he wants to get up to them. He wants to reach them because they're trying to outrun us, I guess. You know, go fast, go forward so fast that we can't reach them. And he's like, these infidels, frick, you know, and just this very quiet murmur of just anger and seething extremist intolerance. And I'm sure, you know, in the other truck, even though I can't see them, all I can see is this window on in the back of this armored truck. I'm sure they're feeling just as many angry, hostile feelings towards my, towards my driver here. It's at this point, roughly, that it dawns on me that I'm in an extremely life-threatening scenario, and whether I'm a vice investigative journalist or not, that doesn't really matter if my life's on the line. So I start worrying that there's going to be gunfire exchange between the two cars. Either he's going to start shooting at them, or the possibility, which worries me more, they're going to start shooting at us. So I grab this tarp next to me in the sort of space between the passenger seat and driver's seat, and I pull it over myself and I slouch real low in the passenger seat so as to kind of shield myself from any gunfire, at least so they won't see me and aim for me, because, you know, they'll think that even though I'm a neutral journalist and I'm just there to document this story, that I'm mixed up somehow in all of it, that I have a horse in the race, an investment in the conflict. So I crouch real low in this tarp, and the speed just picks up. It goes from like 70 to 90, and the driver is just leaned real low over the steering wheel, and he's just like, these infidels, damn, you know. And we get so close to the armored truck of the Israeli Defense Force. I don't even know why I keep calling it the Israeli Defense Force, because it wouldn't make any sense for them to be the Israeli Defense Force if we're in Colorado. It's not like Israel has any jurisdiction here. But the armored truck of the Israeli Defense Force has like these really, offensive bumper stickers on the back of their armored truck. It's so stupid, but it's like, 7 Christians repent every day, or, and there's a bumper sticker also about Islam, and there's one that's like against Buddhism or whatever. It's very stupid, I know. But I see this, and I kind of glance out from under the tarp, and I notice it. And keep in mind, all of this is happening from like a first-person perspective, so I really feel like I'm in the midst of this horrific extremist car chase between two groups that both have a vested interest in where things are going to go, and who's going to come out on top and all of that. So anyway, I keep assuming that sooner or later there's going to be gunfire exchange. The driver keeps kind of glancing to the side like he has a firearm or something in the car, but it never happens. We just keep going faster and faster. And his car is not nearly as equipped as this armored truck. It's just like a normal SUV type thing. And I'm, in the passenger seat, horrified for my life, because even though the road is very flat and straight, there could be a curve up ahead, or there could be a little dip, and we're going so fast, like so unreasonably fast, faster than any car is designed to go, that, I'm very scared that we're going to spin out and crash. And he keeps muttering under his breath, these infidels, oh, damn it, that they believe in Yahweh, and I believe in Allah, oh, damn. And we just keep going faster and faster. The speed just picks up, and even though he really wants to ram into the truck in front of us, we never get there. They just keep going faster as we keep going faster. And we reach 100, 110, 120. I'm crouching under the tarp for dear life, trying to hang on. And the car starts making these little automated notices, because it's like a modern car with the modern GPS infrastructure and all that. It's not all cars I've been in have that, but this one happens to, where, the Siri voice comes on and she's like, "Oh, you are reaching an unsafe speed. Please consider slowing down. Beep. Oh, you might want to consider slowing down." So this just increases the horrific tension in my gut. But he just keeps going faster. It makes no sense. And it should just like slow down, but he's so intent on catching the freaking IDF truck. And he keeps just saying these infidels, And at this point, like, I'm so far under the tarp that I don't see or hear anything, really. And they just keep going faster. And the car is, like, so close to giving out. It's not built to go, 170, 180. Here comes 200 miles an hour. Just absolutely insane, batshit speeds reached by this car, and he keeps pressing down on the gas. It keeps going faster than any car reasonably should be able to, like, and obviously in real life the tires would pop, or the engine would just catch on fire. We'd have to slow down. We wouldn't necessarily like jolt to a standstill all at once, but the car would very much slow down. Some part would break. But we just keep going faster and faster and faster. And the last thing I see, I peek out of the tarp, I peek out from under it, and I look over to my left. We've reached the sound barrier, and we're very quickly reaching the light barrier too. And the face of my driver has just been stretched out, like by the warp velocity that we're going. And he's like all stretchy, and there's like streaks of light flashing past him because we're just going so absurdly fast. We're just like careening into nothingness, into total oblivion. Just driven by raw vengeance and anger and bitter hatred for another religious group. And in this dream, I was roughly the same as I am in reality, an atheist, so entirely neutral to either side. I don't have any preference for any one particular religion, especially Abrahamic religions. But like, his face was all stretchy because we're just going so fucking fast. It was wild. And then I crouched back under the tarp, and I just resign myself to the fact that I'm also getting like that, and the speed is just going to kill us and make us unconscious, just like jet pilots, and then we're just both going to burn up in a fiery ball of pure speed and adrenaline, and then the whole world fades to white. And then I woke up, and my heart was really pounding. My blood pressure is really high these days. I'm very stressed out. So obviously this dream was a very stress-induced dream. But I was just very happy that I was alive and that wasn't real, and it hadn't actually happened, because obviously a scenario like that would result in death. So I was just glad I was alive, and I went and got a drink of water. And I thought about what this dream meant. It's a little more complex than the Terra dream. So there are three meanings that I would ascribe to this dream. The first one, obviously, the most obvious, is that extremist thought of any kind, especially inflexible extremist thought, is immensely self-destructive. And I found this out the hard way, because I've gotten to a point where I cannot understand on a fundamental level how sex or romance works. And this has made it impossible for me to interact with virtually anyone. I'm just consumed by this gnawing confusion about how sex or romance works. and it's not pleasant, and my heart is very close to giving out, so I am just going to have to stop being so intense and all of that. But also, obviously, that extremist thought in general is stupid, and I've always agreed with that. I think that any belief you hold so fucking hard that it just consumes you and eats you alive is not worth holding on to. You should be able to adapt and grow as a person and change. I really want to, but autism obviously comes with rigid thoughts, so it's difficult to do that fast. I can't really do that as fast as other people can seem to. I get very set in my ways. So that was the first meaning, obviously, and just the absurd scenario of like religions that hate each other, for instance, arguing over non-existent deities. Oh boy, my deity's better than your deity. My God has more toys than your God, or whatever. But the second thing that I thought this dream meant, and this only applies to me personally, really, is even if I adopt a very neutral position, even if, say, I'm an atheist, and I don't have any particular preferred religion or anything like that, when I'm around people, they will assume that I'm against their religion more than I'm against the other religion. If I'm, around some Muslims, they'll assume I dislike Islam more than I dislike Christianity. If I'm around some Christians, they'll assume I dislike Christianity more than I dislike Islam, and so on and so forth. Everyone assumes that I'm not genuinely neutral, and I actually have it out for them in particular more than I have it out for the other group. That's the problem with adopting a neutral position amid multiple groups who all believe in kind of the same thing, but just a different variety of the same thing. Like, all three Abrahamic religions have very similar doctrines, but all disagree with each other in such fervent type ways that even if you're neutral, even if you say, I'm an atheist, so I don't have anything against this one group any more than this other group, they will assume that you do. So there really is no winning even if you adopt a neutral position, and you might end up being as extremist in your neutrality and your ability to adopt one side or the other as the people who are willing to adopt one side or the other become. And you will be caught along for the ride even if you don't want to go on it, even if you're scared of engaging with the world and all the wacky ideas that pop up in it and all the vitriolic extremist positions. You can very easily get swept away in that, which is a scary prospect. And it's very important never to lose your head or your cool, and to just remain really laid back and relaxed, I guess. Anyway, the third thing that I took away from this dream in particular, and this has nothing to do with extremism, but the third potential meaning is that there is a speed limit to life. That's why it's about a car chase, as opposed to just like a standstill shootout or something. Is there's a speed limit to how fast you can go in life, and I've reached that speed limit. I cannot become any more famous or any more well-known or successful at the point I'm at in the world I'm at. As it stands, the world is incapable of accepting my wild creative passion, my exciting creative vision and spirit. And if I keep going on making so many fucking comics and videos and music and everything, I will die. My heart will fail. I will just destroy everything that I even wanted to do at the outset, and all my art will just melt down into meaningless slush. It'll just elongate, just like our faces did in the dream. It'll just peter out. There's a limit to how fast you can go, even in the universe, speed of light. eventually you reach that point, and you have to acknowledge that you have biological limitations to how much you can reasonably do. I try so hard to make art because I'm just so dedicated to the creative process, but I've been taxing myself and overworking myself for basically nothing, because nobody at this point even acknowledges that my art is of any value. Barely anyone acknowledges me or notices that I exist, and a lot of people hate me and dislike me, and I've made a lot of enemies through my neutrality, which everyone perceives as against their group in particular. I'm not even a centrist. I've always considered myself politically very left-leaning. I hope that comes across in my content, but even that, I think, I don't want to become too invested or caught up into anything. I'm tired. I'm very weak at this point and frail. And I'm just glad I'm alive and can even relate these dreams, because I've kind of reached the speed limit here, and I don't know exactly how to pace myself going forward. And I approached a point where I was convinced that I could do anything. I felt on top of the world, just filled with adrenaline. This is kind of like cocaine or something. But I've kind of gotten past that, and I'm kind of just glad to be alive. I'm glad I didn't approach that speed limit, because I think that speed limit is just death. So, yeah. Anyway, those are my two weird dreams that I wanted to share with you. The second one I think was a little weirder than the first, but they're very interesting, and they've made me think a lot. And I'm going to start getting more sleep and going to sleep a lot earlier, and getting a better night's rest. And I'm going to be taxing myself mentally a lot less, and being far less vulnerable to the world, because there are a lot of angry people in the world. One thing I have found is that I find it much easier to interact with people who are like 40 or 50 or like that, because they're generally so much calmer and peaceful about the way they approach life. They're not as intense, they're not as driven to materialism or possessions or anything like that. I do like interacting with older people, I've found. I don't really like interacting with people who are my own age, especially Gen Z. I think Gen Z is uniquely narcissistic, ego-driven, short-sighted, and being this age, I do also count myself equally narcissistic, short-sighted, ego-driven, just in completely different ways than all of my peers who have totally different ideas and goals and shit, and operate on a totally separate logic. So I don't know if I'll ever be able to see eye to eye with them. Maybe once we're all 40 and we can all just kind of calm down, but right now it's this very intense early 20s type phase where everyone believes that they're going to solve all of the problems in the world overnight. And that's extremely short-sighted and naive. And I'm sure every generation believes that in their early 20s. Wow, we can solve world hunger and cure cancer and put an end to war. I really don't think that will ever happen. I mean, maybe cancer, but definitely not war. As long as we're the human species, I just think that's extremely naive and short-sighted. And too many people in their early 20s just think they have all the solutions to life figured out. And I do think I'm a little more mature than that, and especially at this point recognize that I sure as fuck don't have all the solutions to life figured out. I'm very uncertain about whether I'll even live through the next year, because my blood pressure is so high from accumulated stress. And I feel years beyond my actual age. I feel like 70 right now. But that's my generation for you. just talking about my generation, like The Who says. And unlike The Who, I don't have very fond thoughts about my generation. I really just can't stand people my age. It's very annoying currently. I'm sure a lot of us will grow out of it and just kind of adopt a temperate stance as the years pass by. But right now it's just so intense on the highway to explosions, and it's not very fun. So I'm going to be interacting with people my age for sure a lot less, and just kind of entering more adult type spaces with like mature discussions, if anything. I'm kind of sick of the youth culture. It's gotten stale pretty fast. We're all just a bunch of social media addicted hamsters, and we've got a bunch of fucking adrenaline and serotonin, more dopamine than any previous generation. It's insane. It's just insanity. Like, I don't know what the solution is. I don't think the solution is just to buy better help or whatever. I mean, there need to be real, tangible, material solutions to address these problems, because they're way bigger than anything like psychiatry can address. There need to be like laws passed and shit that help the human condition and spirit going on into the future. I'm extremely like bitter and disappointed right now, but that'll pass. And I'm just gonna relax and keep dreaming. Yeah, so that's how it's been going. Do you have any weird dreams? Let me know down in the comments.